So good morning and welcome to Silk Life Online. It's great to have you with us again. We are continuing this morning with our focus on prayer. I want to start this morning with the question: have you ever found yourself empathizing with the wrong character in the Bible? So this morning we're going to read about two ladies, Mary and Martha. They're sisters, and they are sisters that welcome Jesus into their home. It's a very famous passage, but let's remind ourselves. We're in Luke 10 from verse 38. It says, "Now, as they," Jesus and his disciples, "as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village. And a woman named Martha welcomed Jesus into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was really distracted by much serving. And she went up to Jesus and said, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me.' But Jesus answered her, 'Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. But one thing is necessary. One thing is truly needed. Mary, she has chosen the good portion, which I will not be taking away from her.'" So quick recap: Jesus and his 12 dusty disciples arrive without giving the ladies any time to prepare. This would be my mum's worst nightmare, but Joe's mum's idea of a complete ball. Mary goes with the flow, pulls up a chair. "So, how's it going with the Pharisees?" Martha gets cracking on in the kitchen. No doubt doing a great job. Quality spread. Getting increasingly cheesed off, though, with Mary apparently kicking back. Did Mary miss the cues from Martha, or did she just choose to ignore the tutting and the rather pointed comments? Till eventually Martha's had enough and she bursts in and has it out. "Lord, don't you care?" I quite like Martha. She speaks my language. She gets things done. Jesus, though, handles her like a pro. "Mary, Mary, you're anxious and troubled by many things." "Too right I am. Many things trouble me. One of them being grot bags over there." Poor Martha. There she is, shaking her spoon at anyone and everyone. "Here I am, busting my britches, and none of you have noticed. She should have cared about me enough to notice. Jesus, if you loved me, you wouldn't have let it happen." I cringe because actually I recognize myself here. Every time I get run down and burned out, every time it doesn't go my way, this is where I end up. I did everything for everyone else. Nobody noticed, and God doesn't care. I wonder, what are you like when your bucket gets empty? I bet it's pretty different to when your bucket is full. When it's full, you're sharp, your senses are alive, I can take on the world, super godly, super effective, super kind. When my bucket's empty, it's all resentment and irritation and woe is me and no one cares. Why did God let it get like this? So come on, level with me. What do? Do you charge in like a rhino, like Martha, plow in the room, all guns blazing? There's a few husbands and wives pointing at each other. Do you withdraw and become passive? Isolate yourself, maybe hoping someone cares enough to find you. Maybe you overeat, overdrink, overmedicate, overwork. I'd state the blazingly obvious, but this kind of depletion, it isn't good. It makes you unhappy. It affects our relationship with others. It saps our faith and our willingness to trust God. I saw a really timely article on Thursday morning in The Guardian. The headline was "Burnout Is the exhausting cult of productivity finally over? So the opening paragraphs read like this. It said, in the last decade, employees have been encouraged to see work and life as interchangeable and hustle ever harder. But the pandemic has brought a new reckoning. In the US, they call it hustle culture. The idea that the ideal person for the modern age is one who is always on, always at work, always grafting. Your work is your life, and when you're not doing your hustle, you have a side hustle. Some of you will know that recently the tech industry coined the phrase play ball, which is a merge of labor and play. Work so enjoyable, it feels like leisure. Elon Musk famously tweeted, "Nobody ever changed the world in 40 hours a week." According to Elon, people of vision work in excess of 80 hours a week because industry is driven by passion and your life is no more than your task. This narrative is really pervasive. In the 80s, it was all about strap on a suit in the office and bang out your 10-hour day. But Mark Zuckerberg and his modern day Silicon Valley pals, they've shifted the narrative. Now it's put on a grey t-shirt that looks like you're in your pajamas and work till you drop. If we're not careful, work pervades everything. Have you noticed that the benefit of a grey t-shirt is you can just go to bed and not bother getting changed? Try doing that in a suit. Work pervades everything. It follows you home like a school bully and steals your lunch money. Hear me though, I'm not telling you to do nothing. That's the classic misapplication of Mary and Martha's story. I'm not telling you to be lazy. Truth is, you can do not a lot and still not sit at the feet of Jesus. I think if you sit at the feet of Jesus long enough, he will actually commission you to do something fruitful. But when was the last time you went through a prolonged season feeling calm, rested, peaceful, strong, and joyfully effective? Adam and Eve, they walked in the garden with God, and he instructed them, be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. That's in Genesis 1. There's a lot of doing words in there, work words, fruitful, increase, fill, subdue, rule. When you catch God's heart for your purpose, you work hard and you aren't distracted. Work is not a product of sin. We see it in Genesis before Adam and Eve eat the apple, before the fall, before sin, is part of God's good creation. God commanded Adam and Eve to rule and subdue the earth. This is not passive. Rule and subdue takes a plan, organization, sweat, and graft. Jesus didn't die for you to wear out your armchair. He didn't die so you wouldn't run. He did die so you wouldn't run wildly in a frantic, purposeless spiral of busy. So here's the thing. Hurry is the state of urgency and excessive haste. And the word associates with hurricane. And hurricanes are swirling winds of destruction. Does your life feel like one endless hurricane, one constant swirl, 2 steps away from disaster? Frantic effort driven by stress and guilt, constant state of too much to do. Do you know, once upon a time, they thought computers would mean we would all only work 3 or 4 days a week because there wasn't going to be enough for us to do. The computers would do it all for us. There were actually government meetings about how to help people make use of all the spare time they were going to have. Instead, technology means we can work all day, every day, and every night even, from wherever we are and whatever we are doing. On holiday in another country, it doesn't matter. Wi-Fi will find you. Looking after your kids at the park, there's a ping in your pocket that will tax your attention and bully you into multitasking. Did you know that the average iPhone user touches their phone 2,617 distinct times a day. I'm wondering how many of you have checked your phones since I started this talk. I've actually started leaving the house once a week without my phone. Not for long, I'm not a madman, just a couple of hours. I tell you, people flipping hate it. The wife hates it, I hate it. How do I communicate without it? What if something goes wrong? What if I remember something and need to make a voice note to save the memory? What if I need to be productive? Where's my phone? Where's Siri? Technology is amazing and super helpful, but the tax on our attention is relentless. It never stops unless you make it. Psalm 16 says, I have set the Lord always before me. What would it look like if God touched my mind as often as the average person touches their phone? What would it look like if there were 2,600 moments of awareness of the presence of God during any given day? Psalm 23 does not say, the Lord is my shepherd, therefore I'd better run faster. I think many of my worst moments are when I'm in a hurry. We're so used to spiritually mediocre days lived in irritation and preoccupation and frenzy, that I worry that we're throwing away our lives without actually seeing what's happening. Many of you will have heard of John Mark Comer. He was a crazy successful church leader, public speaker, writer, booked up, leading 6 sites, preaching 6 times on a Sunday, all kinds of madness. He was successful by every metric you could imagine, but began to feel like maybe he'd lost his way. And he wrote this: why am I in such a rush to become somebody I don't even like? In America, you can be a success as a pastor and a failure as an apprentice of Jesus. You can gain a church, but lose your soul. And I don't want this to be my life. I wonder, do you ever feel tired of life as you know it? Do you have a sneaky suspicion there might be a better way to be human? That you might be missing the whole point? That you find yourself multitasking through every moment, even church, because it feels impossible to be fully present? That the metrics for success that culture handed you might be skewed? I wonder, do those success metrics come at a cost that you're willing to pay? Martha, she was serving like a crazy because her culture said hospitality mattered, that not serving a guest was rude and culturally unacceptable. She was in this cultural straitjacket. But in the process, she missed the guest completely. She missed Jesus. She even got angry with Jesus. She got angry with her sister and angry with herself. Corrie ten Boom once said, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. They both have the same effect. They cut you off from connection with God, to other people, even to your own emotions, to your own soul. Just track with me on this logic for a moment. When I absorb a culture of business, hurry and overload, God becomes more marginalized in my thinking and in my life because I have no time, which leads to a deteriorating relationship with God, which leads to me becoming even more vulnerable to dodgy thinking, to assumptions, to bitterness, to temptation, which leads to more conformity to culture and greater blindness or numbness to the presence of God. And then the cycle just begins again. And it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse, precariously wandering further away from God. Question: what did Jesus say was the greatest commandment? Now you're all Bible-loving dudes, you know this, right? Easy. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. Followed closely by love your neighbor as yourself. But think this: love is painfully time-consuming. It takes time to love. All parents know this. Hurry and love are incompatible. Watch me next time I'm running late for something, trying to get the kids out the door after a long, busy day at work. Just stand back and marvel at just how loving and gentle I manage not to be. Savor the sharp tone of my voice. Absorb the muted or biting response to simple, honest questions. Watch me roll my eyes with frustration when one of them needs a last-minute toilet trip. It doesn't look like love or joy or peace. We move so fast through life that when we're stressed out, on edge, quick to snap at everyone, we find that hurry and love are like oil and water. They don't mix. Hurry kills relationships because love takes time and hurry doesn't have it. Hurry kills joy because people in a rush don't have time to enter the goodness of the moment. Hurry kills wisdom. Wisdom is born in the quiet, in the slow. Wisdom has its own pace. It makes you wait for it. Hurry kills spirituality, health, marriage, family, thoughtful work, creativity, generosity, name your value. Hurry is a sociopathic predator loose in our society because successful life has become violent. We make war on our bodies, pushing them beyond their limits all the time. And it's not particularly new. Gandhi once said, there's more to life than increasing its speed. Pretty much all worldviews agree. If there's a secret to happiness, it's found in the simple presence in the moment. The more presence we are in the now, the more accessible love, joy, and peace become. Jesus wants to grow love, joy, and peace in the soil of your life. John Ortberg wrote, for many of us, the great danger is not that we will renounce our faith. It's that we'll become so distracted and rushed and preoccupied that we'll settle for a mediocre version of it. We'll just skim our lives instead of actually living them. So you might be thinking, this is meant to be a series on prayer. What does this have to do with prayer? Well, I suspect many of us feel the biggest barrier to a fulfilling prayer life is time, being busy and being crazy tired when we do find we suddenly have time. Being distracted by the tax on our attention through the technology that's all around us. So here's the question, what would it look like to re-architect our lives? To re-architect this church community around genuine apprenticeship to Jesus. The truth is we can't do everything, so we have to choose. Life is a series of choices. Every yes is 1,000 no's. Every yes to Twitter is a no to something else. Every activity we do is 1,000 activities we can't give our time to because we can't be in two places at once. We have to choose where to place our attention. We have to choose which things are most important and choose to look at those. Which things would we miss most if they were taken away tomorrow? Look at them every day for as long as you can. Because attention is the beginning of devotion. Devotion to real relationships, devotion to children, devotion to God, to friends. Actually, worship and joy start with the capacity to turn our mind towards the God who is always with us. And as apprentices of Jesus, this is our primary task. Turn our mind towards God. Think about it. What does an apprentice do? They're all around us. These young people that go to become tradesmen, they work with a master tradesman, an experienced tradesman. They sit in his white van, they eat Greggs, they follow him around, they watch what he does, take instruction, chip in every now and then, and learn to do what the master tradesman does. For us to be apprentices of Jesus, we've got to organize our life around the things that he is doing. Organize our life around three basic goals, if you like. Be with Jesus, become like him, and do what he would do. Apprentices model their life after the master. We model our life after Jesus. And we can only learn the unforced rhythms of grace by walking through life to the beat of his footsteps, to the bounce of his heartbeat. Simple question here, kids, you can play with this. How do you hear someone's heart? How do you hear someone's heartbeat? Well, you press into their chest with your ear. It's a very intimate thing. You keep still and you listen. Listen to the rhythm that brings their whole body life. Jesus' invitation to you is to go through life with your ear pressed to his chest, to hear his heart, to hear the rhythm that brings life. If you want to experience the life of Jesus, you have to adopt the lifestyle of Jesus. We're really, really familiar with the phrase that describes Jesus as the way, the truth, and the life. It's a great phrase. In him, we find the way of righteousness, ethics that shape our decision-making. In him, we find truth, ideas that shape our view of the world, theology that defines reality. But hear this, in him, we find life. You might like to change that to, in him, we find a lifestyle. Following Jesus is a way of life. It's his way of life. Following Jesus is something you do, not a doctrine you nod to. It's not about the information. We gather up information on a Sunday and then we move on. Following Jesus is our lifestyle shaped by his lifestyle. We don't just adopt his truth and his ethics, we adopt his lifestyle, take on his habits and practices. That's the point of an apprentice. Let me jump back to our passage in Luke. Remember, there were two sisters. We're told in verse 40 that Martha was distracted by much serving. But Mary, she sat at the feet of Jesus and listened to his teaching. Observe this, Jesus didn't really need Martha's food. Jesus is the bread of life, and he can multiply food to feed the masses, and he's the one that provided manna in the desert for the wandering Hebrews and made water burst out from the rock. Whatever Jewish custom said, Jesus didn't need Martha's food. She had welcomed Jesus to her home, but somehow got it mixed up in her head, and she thought she was doing Jesus a favor, and she missed him. I'm sure Mary would have made lunch if Jesus had asked her to. But her desire was to be close to Jesus, to listen, really listen, to absorb the tone and texture of his voice, to observe the shape of his lips, the way he laughed and smiled, the substance of his heart, the wisdom and gentleness of his words. Jesus said Mary had chosen the good portion. He means she chose the path that would lead to greatest contentment and fulfillment. Mary chose the pearl of great price, the greatest treasure. She chose to seek first the kingdom of God. She chose to observe the heartbeat of Jesus, to apprentice under him. Hurry and hustle would have robbed her. Being dragged off to help Martha would have robbed her. Hurry and hustle will rob us of these moments. But there is another way, because Jesus is the way. And time's beaten me, so we'll have more on this theme next week. But for now, let's pause. Let's give ourselves to him in prayer. Jesus, no doubt there is a string of things that I could be doing right now. There's a whole load of stuff that would capture my attention. I just choose to put them on hold to be with you. To stop gathering up information, but to center myself on you. Like Mary, to listen, to really listen, to engage. Jesus, I recognize the swirling current of my consciousness and I bring it to you. And Holy Spirit, I pray that you would focus my scattered senses on you, to honor you with my full attention. Jesus, teach us to walk through life as apprentices of you, to pause long enough to press our ear to your chest, to hear your heartbeat, and to follow your lifestyle. In your name, Lord. Amen. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. We're going to be walking through this concept of being apprentices to Jesus for the next few weeks now. So we would love you to come on the journey with us. If you're listening through Facebook or YouTube, do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. We'll catch up soon.